I was doing it automatically for so long that I keep thinking it's already going. All right, so I'll just repeat any release planning updates or anything like that. Maybe we could start with the implementation subteam.
Sure. So we shipped lifecycle 0.11.0 yesterday, and we, in the last hour, had 2 reports of from different people experiencing issues with the release. So we are looking at it as we speak. So far, it seems that there is something that causes the lifecycle to hang. During detect or analyze.
Cool. And on the platform side?
There's nothing really to update other than the Tecton tasks were finally released. That was, I believe, late week last time, so I'm not sure if it was mentioned here. Still making some tweaks to the Tecton pipeline. Other than that, nothing really for the platform that I'm aware, or yeah, for Pack specifically.
Sounds good. And so now we'll do our weekly RFC review. Sharing my screen. First thing is proposed creation of best practices and guidelines repository. I think Sam, you opened this one. Anything you're looking for? Maybe he's away right now. Looks like we're just looking for feedback on this right now. It's just opened. So I'll
tag it, please.
Oh yeah. This is, do we have a tag for, is it core?
I think there's a learning or a doc.
I was gonna say, is learning appropriate or is it core? I think that depends on whether or not we wanna have a process for creating these guidelines.
I'm gonna do both for now. We can take one off if we feel like it's wrong.
I think this is driven, like the outcome of this is the learning team, right? With collaboration from the core team, but fundamentally the learning team delivers this.
That'll work.
And can guide it through the process.
Should we say that all documentation about contributing to the project is also on learning team? I wasn't sure if learning team was just user-facing documentation. That's kind of,
I believe they own like that whole, like learning team owns the repo where like the list of owners and stuff like that is. So I think that's learning team no matter what.
Cool. All right. And Pat cache the draft. Next one is allow setting default command arguments that can be overridden by user. This is already tagged. Anything, does this need anything else? Anybody have context on where this is?
I think Sam updated it to reverse the, he reversed it from like the alternative to the proposed. That was the last I saw it. So I think he's looking for feedback and votes.
Sounds good. And Ben just added the core team for review. Next thing is allow for different build runtime user IDs. Does this need anything this week? Seems like last thing that happened was a review was requested 7 days ago. Are there any outstanding arguments? Anything that needs to get pushed along? All right, well, I'll just encourage folks to take a look. Disambiguate layer metadata from app metadata. Also, it's just been updated as of 40 minutes ago. So let's seems like looking for more feedback. I'll go ahead and add the core team to this one also.
Is this a core team one? Did we decide?
Oh.
I can't remember if we consider this to be a implementation team, but I guess it's changing like the whole layers directory, right?
Yeah, I think so. So
Okay,
I'd guess
Yeah.
it's core team for now.
cool.
Cool. Add RFC for displaying contributor graph. Do we have Anthony here? Nope. Anybody want to speak to this at all? Looks like there's some activity, but maybe not super recent activity. 14 days ago. Yeah. Lots of discussion though. Maybe just
Yeah, 2 weeks though is enough that we probably need to. The Sherpa needs to chase Anthony down.
Javier.
Me, I'll do that. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh gosh. Did I close it? No. Sorry. It's over here. Just change windows. Next one is RFC issue generation. This is from Javier. Has been sitting for about 7 days. Needs anything you need there, or just
No, it's me. It's on me. I'm slacking there.
no worries. Sounds good. Product descriptor, domains RFC. Looks like this has necessary approvals. Is that right?
Yeah, should be finalizing today, I believe.
Yeah, FCP 7 days ago, so it'll be today.
So we just need some
Cool.
issues. I know
Yeah.
Pac's gonna create one.
All right. Seems like we're good there. Pack. Did I skip component level contributions? I think I probably skipped that one somehow. That's my own RFC. I just as an update here, there's feedback. I still need to update it. I know it's been 14 days. I will absolutely get back to it. So don't worry, Terrence, who's not here. Did I skip anything else? I don't think so. Last one is package refactoring.
So I'm gonna claim that this is good. I think Emily had some thoughts, but she has since approved. So
we're just looking for approvals from other folks here. Is that right? Or is this it's refactoring just on the platform subteam?
I think it's platform subteam, so we'd like to get the blessing from the core team to merge. So I'm not entirely sure what the process looks like for that, right? Is it just like, or
It's
do we need
totally,
additional reviews?
yeah, it's totally in your court there would be my view here. Like if you think that you have gotten the appropriate maintainer sign off for this and you've heard from other people, like you can take it to FCP.
Cool. I just know Joe had some opinions about wanting to review it to some extent, regardless of what the
he is free to do a non-binding review during the FCP period.
Sounds good.
Do you want me to block on Joe or take to FCP and note that Joe should happy to go either way?
Sounded like Ben was saying, let's go to FCP and then have that period for core team to object, essentially.
Like this follows the exact same process. That's just a different set of binding votes, right?
Yep.
Look good? Cool. And I think that concludes our weekly RFC review. Next thing on the agenda, there is no next thing on the agenda. Does anybody have topics for this week they want to talk about? If so, please add them to the agenda before we talk about them. I'll wait like
I'm rushing. I do want to add the RFC I have in draft since there isn't anything else.
Go for it.
Let me present it real quick.
Can you add it to the agenda list also?
I'll get that. You go, Javier.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ben. All right. So what we have here is a platform specific thing, but I think it might be impactful enough, given that we're enabling some flexibility that wasn't quite there before, that it may be worth kind of discussing as a whole here in the working group. But essentially, there's been a couple, like the motivation are these use cases, right? Where as a pack user, they want to be able to have different combinations of, or I guess maybe a better term is better configuration of the caching mechanisms and where the caching resides during a pack build. And so these use cases, they're kind of linked here, but for instance, one, they want to build using the Docker daemon and storing the build cache as an image in the registry. So that's just something that we've recently enabled. The cache images, but we still don't, like, we still need to be able to do a publish, right? As a kind of issue there. There are other things like Bitbucket pipelines, which don't allow you to use named volumes, which Pack uses, kind of behind the scenes to be able to do this. And the last one is to be able to specify the name of the volumes, similar to cache image, where you could specify the cache image you want to use for the operation. You want to be able to specify what volumes to use in case you do want to, maybe shoot yourself in the foot and use the same caching for one application versus another. All this flexibility kind of put us in a position where we had one option was to have like a multitude of different flags. So you could see like cache image, specify an image. You could specify cache volume, then specify cache volumes. So we've isolated everything or aggregated everything into this one single flag, where we want to propose this format essentially similar to Docker mount, where you could specify the type of cache you want to operate on, what format it is it's going to be persisted on or retrieved from, and then any potential additional options. Here's an example of some of the use cases that we mentioned before and how they would behave.
Does this doc have what the string equivalent of the default would be in it somewhere?
The default.
So like if you don't specify a cache flag, some kind of caching happens, right?
Yes.
And what would be the equivalent flag you would have set to achieve the same end?
That's interesting. It has defaults. It doesn't have that specifically, but you could envision that you would have this flag here, the cache type build, format volume, and then this name here would be this, which is pack, the type, and an app UUID.
Okay.
Right, so you would have one for build, and then you would have a separate flag for launch.
Would this let you use, would this make it easier for users to use a cache for an unrelated application with, or between unrelated applications?
Yeah, and I mean, even related, right? Like if you wanted to change the name of the app or the image, right? The caching, if you know what the caching is, that could still be persisted across different image names, which right now isn't possible.
How does this change the, and I'm sorry if you said this, does this change the, like, currently we look for the cache by generating using the, I don't know, image name or type and app UUID, right? When you use a different cache, right, is it going to switch back to using a cache that's named app name or named with the app UUID on the next run, or does it change the default for that image somehow to the cache you just used? So like I'm thinking, like, could you thinking about if you keep using this tool, do you end up thrashing back and forth, or do you need to keep respecifying this thing? And if you kind of permanently need to say, okay, the cache is called this now, is that something we need to put in Project Toml to save it?
That's an interesting thought. I really haven't thought about that. And I think in particular, because the use cases that this is trying to resolve are more around very specific advanced usage of cache. And thereby, maybe limitations of the environment that they're being used in, and not so much for the everyday app developer, right? And so because of that, part of the reason why we're okay with a more complex syntax. But at the same time, I think adding that additional complexity of the nicety of persisting the image can also have like a negative side effect to what we're trying to achieve here.
Yeah, like I think that's the wrong scope, right? Like inside a Project Toml tied to this particular application is the wrong place for that, because applications can be built with a great many tools. On my laptop is only one of those where I want this particular configuration. When it goes into Bitbucket and I need a different flag, like what exactly did you check into source control to be used there? So I don't think it's the right scope for it.
I definitely buy that. I think what I was trying to get at more is, do we need to come up with a way to persist the decision to use a particular cache on your local workstation, after you choose to use it one time? Are there some nasty patterns around that that people are going to fall into?
Yeah, like this is the same thing with anything that takes a flag, right? Do you write an alias to help out with it or something like that? If we were going to do this, something in the pack config directory feels like the right place to me, where it's associated with, I don't know, something, a fully qualified path or something.
But the cache is for an individual image, right? So you wouldn't want to set it one cache system wide. Like there's no way to say,
I'm per image in that configuration thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. Or we could use templating too, right? Similar to what we already do in some sense here.
Yeah, like that's the scope though, right? Like it's the scope of the use of this particular tool in this particular environment, which means I think it sits with Pack's configuration.
It could be a local get ignored file in the directory, so we don't have to make a big map of possible image names to possible cache types, something like that.
As you constantly point out in other meetings we're in, local working directory does not correspond one-to-one to an image. You could build to, if you've checked out a mono repo, you've got multiple images basically in there.
Application directory, maybe. I don't know. That's a hard. I'm not suggesting a solution. I'm more concerned about if we implement this, does it create UX problems? I'm just bringing it up as feedback, not like not blocking on it. My next question is, does this, we're talking a lot about building a front end. Someone even has a kind of proof of concept in the community of a build kit front end, and that may change caching a lot if we can implement merge op upstream in build kit, which is something that's on there, or they have an open issue about that someone could take a look at. I don't think this does anything. Like I don't think this makes it harder to move in that direction. But just want to call out that may change caching a lot, if that makes sense. And so how Pack caches in local builds at least. So it's maybe worth thinking about what caching looks like over there before we commit to building out sort of more complexity in the current model, but not a blocking thing. Also, just something that occurs to me.
Yeah, maybe in that same vein, I know Emily and I have spoken about the fact that Pack could technically stay away from using the daemon flag for the lifecycle, and therefore not use the launch cache. And so technically launch cache could eventually go away. And I think part of the inspiration for the solution is the idea that certain flags or options could go away, right? So it makes it more flexible. Like one of the things here right? If type, or sorry, if launch goes away, then the only type is build, then you never have to specify type again, right? Like the type option goes away. So I think if anything, the flexibility in this syntax actually makes it a little bit more feasible to reason about any potential cache changes in the future.
Launch cache is a daemon specific thing, right?
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like if we go
Yeah.
away from the daemon, and like we would have a pack hack to essentially stand up a registry and have lifecycle published to that, and then pack move it to the daemon.
Yeah, I would go for the build kit front end,
Right,
for
like-
local builds instead of continuing to build that complexity there. I think that's kind of part of my thing, but that makes sense. That makes sense. That's a different discussion.
Cool. I mean, that's all I have. And like I said, it's platform specific, but I thought maybe, there'd be some good conversation here.
I don't know how I feel about the syntax with the, like, I don't have a better suggestion, but like, it feels a little heavy or something. Like, could it be different flags? I don't know.
Inspired from
dash.
Docker mounts, right? Like Docker mount. Is that what that's inspired from, Javier?
Yes.
This looks very similar to that to me. Yeah.
Yeah. The only bike shedding I think we had was in the syntax itself was like the separators, semicolons versus commas. But yeah, I'll add my pushback on commas in that some of the options could be lists where we might want to have commas as separators there as opposed to full options.
We can't use colons as separators there because they're allowed in image tags or something.
Oh yeah, semicolons. I mean, yeah, semicolons versus commas.
It makes sense. It makes sense. I'm thinking of it if we wanted to use commas, or if we need a list separator, colons are often used as list separators in the context, but it seems like we couldn't do that here because it's in the our colons are valid in Docker tag names. Cool. I like it.
All right. Try to get some of that more fleshed out and approved at the platform side of things.
Anything else on the agenda? ARM 64. That's exciting.
I hate this interface. Sorry. I actually just wanted to ask a question. Because I know we've got some items on the life cycle around ARM 64, and I just want to find out who's working on it. And I'd like to. It's becoming important for us, so we'd like to see about contributing to it.
I think Micah's working on it. Definitely important because of M1 Max, you're able to build, right?
That's the motivation for us too.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think Micah's working on it. Does anybody else know who else has looked into this?
We've discussed this a few times in the implementation sub-team meeting. I think that might be a good meeting for you to pop into if you can. It's like on tomorrow. I don't know. It's somewhere on the links. I think it's in that doc that we're in actually. But that might be somewhere where you pop in to see. Yeah, I think you're right though, Stephen. Micah was looking at it, but I'm not sure it's like his priority or anything right now. So I think it might be good to pop in and see if anyone's actually doing the work, because we talked about it, but I think it's kind of on everyone's bucket list, but it's not really like the top of anyone's mind right now. So I think it would be valuable to get in there. If you've got contributors, then that would be great.
Jesse, Stephen, what do you understand the scope of his work to be? Is it just lifecycle is ARM64 available?
Scope of Micah's work?
Yeah.
He was experimenting with it with no kind of mandate to deliver anything, if that makes sense.
Okay.
A while back, right? I think if, but that's not to say that he, it couldn't be as focused now, or that's not what's up next for him. I just don't have the visibility right now, but I can find out. There's a ARM channel in the Cloud Native Buildpacks Slack. Also, Brian, you might want to join, and there's some past context in there for explorations.
Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Ben, you're saying something.
Do we think that there are spec changes in the cards for that?
I don't know yet.
So yeah,
I think because of manifest lists, because of manifest lists, we may get a lot of this for free, right? It's not like with stacks where we need to create a special contract for different kinds of things. Manifest lists should just buy us. Yes, it'll just pull the right image from the right thing. A lot of stuff works already. I think there's even a proof of concept. To me, the scope is like Pack CLI should build on that. You should be able to have ARM images. There shouldn't be any x86 code executing from pack build to end of pack build.
Yeah, I'm thinking more about affordances for the Buildpack developers themselves, determining whether or not it is ARM64, potentially building both images simultaneously, for example.
Yeah, they definitely need to build two separate images with the same tag and different architectures for this to work. But if they do that right now, it should work. But we probably want tooling eventually, right, to make that easier.
Yeah, I think
The
some of the
pack
Windows
grade
work
Buildpack.
has made this a pretty good transition because we
Yeah.
already sort of do a lot of this. But I think there are some gotchas with like the cache images and stuff like that. And then there's also sort of scoping as far as like how we want to approach this, because we could just compile lifecycle for ARM, but we could also like continue to run fat x86 builders and publish ARM images. Like we have the flexibility to be able to do that now. And so like we really got to figure out what the, but that requires the Buildpacks knowing that up front and being able to achieve that. So like, there's a lot of different scopes there, I think.
Yeah, I think that was going to be my question, right? Is maybe like as a whole, we need to understand all the different possible modes of operation and then determine exactly which one is the most important for the majority of the community, and then make sure that that actually works. Because I know, again, like we could get Pack to work on an M1 machine, but that doesn't mean that it'll actually build an M1 container at all, right?
I definitely think we should not let this drop, if that makes sense, or we should really keep track of it and make sure that it gets prioritized, because it's not going to be good for our user base if more and more people over time can build stuff with Docker files in ARM and can't build stuff with Buildpacks on ARM. So definitely interested in figuring out how I can help kickstart that effort.
Does everything work now with like Rosetta with Pack, or does it not work?
The newest version of Docker on M1 actually is much more robust. So we produce AMD 64 images when you run with Pack. And before I was finding it was very crashy, but now it actually can succeed.
So you've actually built ARM images so far, just with...
No, this is building AMD 64 images.
Okay, makes sense. I thought I heard you say ARM. Cool.
Building them from ARM. Yeah.
On an ARM host, building x86 images.
That's right.
Yeah, cool.
Do you use Rosetta to do that, or does the Docker take care of? Okay.
Well,
you got to have one of these
Docker
experimental versions of Docker, like their preview releases of Docker, which will then host an x86.
Yeah, so they use Rosetta for some of their native binaries that you run, but within the runtime, they use QEMU under the hood. So they use Linux bin format extensions to automatically run QEMU as required.
Interesting. Emulation returns. Yeah. Cool. All right. Anything else this week? Thanks, everybody.